TitleMatchNetwork.com.
My first, we were talking about earlier on learning about the wrestling business. Mm-hmm. My wife didn't come to many matches. Pretty smart lady, and she one time as a student, I'd walk to the ring with my cap and gown on.
All right.
Get in the ring, take it off, and become the student. She said, "Why do you do that? Why do you have to wait to the ring to become your persona? Why don't you come out of the locker room and be what you're going to be?" If you remember George Steele coming out after that, cheers flying, run through the crowd, chase people, boom, boom, boom. My wife told me to do that. It wasn't any creation group of people or writers.
Right.
And it just makes a lot of sense. If you're going to be a wild man, you're a wild man from the time you come out the door. Now, my character, I could be sitting there having a smoke, because I smoked in those days, shooting the breeze, telling stories, and say, "George, you're on now." I walked through the door and George turned on. I mean, it's just automatic. I don't know how that worked. It was just an automatic thing with me. It always was. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to go out and do this here, this here, this here. Never thought like that at all.
When you're in hotels and on the road and fans were around, did you go into character or did you?
It depended.
Right.
See, the mystique of going both ways. I'm not Pat Patterson. You're going both ways with the fans. Keeps it powerful. If you come up to me and say, "George, how you doing?" "I'm fine." You come up to me 2 weeks later, "How you doing, George?" You just dropped your drawers,
right.
You put them back on, and I have got over with you. Now, if I did this all the time with you, then I'm just another guy. If I did this all the time with you,
you don't know.
Nah. But if I do it back and forth, see, I started the wild stuff in Pittsburgh again. I would do great interviews. I was a pretty good interviewer, by the way, when I came to the Northeast. Do really good interviews, and then I start going, and I'd snap, like a psychological thing.
Right.
And then I'd come back and be normal again. So my whole character was always kind of done that way. When I went.
Who came up with the name George Steele?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
We were in Pittsburgh, and I didn't want to use my real name, Jim Myers, and so we're going back and forth, and everybody'd like to get another name. And Johnny DeFazio was in the locker room. Johnny DeFazio later on became president of the Steelworkers Union, and he's from Pittsburgh. And he said, "Well, this is a Steel City. Why don't we call him Jim Steele?" I said, "I like Steele. I don't like Jim." And somebody else said, "George." I said, "That's it." So the good news is this side of my body's about 40 years old. This other side's about 70 years old. I prefer the George Steele side at times. But when I'm around people that, I'm Jim Myers, I can ride with somebody.
Were you the animal yet at this point in time?
The animal, I guess I was always the animal. No one ever sit down. We didn't have these creative meetings like they have now. People started calling the crowd because I do the things that I do and the look, and they started calling me an animal. "You're an animal, you're an animal." So I get them. "I'm not an animal, I'm a people." And after a while, I kept doing that. I go on TV, quit calling me an animal. And the fans are the ones that named me the animal. When I first went to New York, how stupid was this? They had me George the Bruiser Steele. That was my name going in. And I told them, "I don't like that, just George Steele."
Right.
And then later on, the fans picked up on it. I became an animal. When I went off the roof, and I was pissed when I did this. I was doing an interview, a very good interview. I had a manager standing by me. There might have been Fred Blassie. But I'm doing the talking. And Vince said, "Cut." No one ever cut one of my interviews before. He said, "Well, the people are calling you an animal. You're making too much sense for an animal. Why don't you go a little kooky?" Now I'm hot.
Right.
Now I'm kicking. "Okay, you want a kooky?" So they come back on. He asked me a question. And he said, "That's what I want." I went, "Shit."
Right.
I mean, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
But that's when now he's the boss, and that's what he wants, and that's not what I want to be. And that's when it changed, but it worked out really pretty good. I did better interviews than any of the guys. I was a better talker than Piper. I'll tell you why. Listen carefully. Piper would take 1,000 words to tell you the story. Tell you something about that too. I was wrestling, and this is a good example of a one-man gang. Had a mohawk with a tattoo on each side. Here's my interview. Mean Gene says, "What are you going to do with a one-man gang?" And he asked me again. "Tattoo!" So now I know who he is. One word. "What about the tattoo? What are you going to do when you wrestle him?" "Fight biker. He's a biker. Now I got your, and people
Right.
are saying, they're helping me say it because I'm biker. And then, biker. Then my next line was, you're picturing a biker, well, tattoo, tricycle. In other words, he's not a tough biker. And then, hurt. Hammerlock. 4 words. Everybody watching the interview for 35, 40 seconds is saying the words I'm trying to say. Rather than spitting out 35 or 40, I got my message out, and they're feeling sorry for me. They can't talk.
Right.
And I'm going to the bank. You tell me.
It's good stuff.
And
At what point in your career did you gain more confidence in yourself as a worker or a wrestler?
I was full of confidence by the time I left Detroit. When I was done being the student, I was prepared. I've been around some of the best workers, in my opinion, in the business. Old timers that were just working one old territory, and they were just fantastic. And they taught me all angles of the business. I mean, I was ready. I was really lucky that I didn't have to quit teaching. Mr. McMahon offered me an opportunity to go with, what's his name? He looks a lot like me. He's bald headed. He was a wild guy too, and he wanted to make us the wildest tag team. We were going to travel with Andre the Giant. He wanted me to quit teaching for a lot of money, but my loyalty was to my family and to my coaching and teaching, not to wrestling. And I know that sounds terrible, but wrestling was very good to me. Don't take that wrong.
Right.
But it was very, very good. But my first love was not wrestling. Never has been.
How did the turnbuckle leading start? When was the first time you started doing that?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
I mean, everything started in Pittsburgh. We used to have a studio wrestling. They got about maybe 80 people in the studio, and they had plywood around behind them, and it was black and white TV, by the way.
Right.
So they had faces painted on the white faces painted on the plywood to make it look like a bigger crowd.
Right.
And then they would give away gifts, sometimes ashtrays, sometimes not hard ashtrays. I would hope they didn't. But this one time they give away before your time. But they used to have satin pillows, couch pillows, real tight packed little satin things. I don't know if you've ever seen them or not.
No.
Some old lady got one. They give away like 80 of them. So this old lady, ringside Rosie, who's not part of the show but was there always,
All right.
threw her pillow at me. Now I got a pillow in the ring. What am I going to do with a pillow in the ring? I mean, it's a tool. Everything's a tool to me, to use. Not a gimmick, a tool. It's the only gimmick I got. But I'm looking at it, and I know if I sit on it, it's going to be a slow match. If I take it and throw it at her, they're going to throw 80 of them back at me. I mean, I'm running out of options. I'm not real smart, but I thought, well, shall I bid it? And this thing exploded because it was packed so tight, and it started going up in the air. So I started throwing it in the air. It's coming down like snow. It wasn't flying down.
Right.
Real light, lighter than air, sticking in my hair like the abominable snowman. So now, I'm really getting into that.
Right.
And then I take my pillow and I stick it over my opponent's head, and I'm choking him. Great TV, man. I'm working that camera, and boy, and he's selling, and I take it off, he's blue. Because the stuffing is lighter than air. So every time he breathes in,
Wow.
I'm filling his lungs with stuffing. I almost killed him. So I go to the dressing room, and the guys being like they are, they all laughing. Oh, you almost killed that one. And one of the guys said, if you get somebody to throw a pillow at you every night, you could really be something. And what's his name? Puglisi. Tony Puglisi says, yeah, maybe you could eat a turnbuckle. And we all laughed. About 2.5 weeks later, I was working with Jay Strongbow, Chief Jay Strongbow.
Okay.
And the match just sucked. And the people are sitting on their hands. And usually I got a reaction. They weren't reacting at all. So I looked at the turnbuckle. I thought, I wonder. It popped. It was over Everlast mat, and it popped open. Pulled the stuff out, threw that out, rubbed it in his eye. Almost had a riot.
Wow.
And I learned right then that I could do better with turnbuckles than I can wrestling. So turnbuckles happen in almost every match. And the next thing you're going to ask me is about the green tongue.
Well, I would ask you about that coming up, but we could go into that right now.
Okay, the green tongue happened in guess where?
Pittsburgh?
Oh, you're getting smart.
There you
You're
go.
getting with it, brother. I'd had a few drinks, and we were getting ready for TV, and I didn't want them to know it. Bruno was gone. We had a new promoter in, and so I put some chlorets in my mouth. It went on live TV, and now we have got color TV.
Right.
So the switchboard lit up. Why is this? I didn't know my tongue was green, and it lit up, and they blew over. That was on a Saturday. The following Friday, I wrestled in Civic Arena, and there was green tongues hanging all over the place. I thought, God, that's funny.
That got over.
But I never did it again for another 5 or 6 months. wasn't that smart yet. And I thought, you know, that green tongue thing really got, we're going to do that again, see how they react. So I ate some Clarisse, this time on purpose. Went out, TV went crazy. Live TV again in Pittsburgh. Went to the arena, they had green tongues all over the place. From that time on, I'm guaranteeing you, the best breath in wrestling. I had Clarisse every time I wrestled.
Now, Pittsburgh.
TitleMatchNetwork.com